because I got back from a trip on Saturday and was diagnosed with COVID, and it hit me hard for a couple of days, but I'm feeling much better. So I see a whole bunch of empty microphones there at City Hall, and I hope we have enough for a quorum, do we? There they are. Okay. We've got a quorum. Very good. All right. So what I'd like to do at this point is have everybody introduce themselves, and we'll start from left to right, starting with Joyce, right over there.
Joyce Gifford.
All right, Joyce.
Joey Knopf.
Very good.
Tim Lanehart.
Oh, we didn't hear that. You're going to have to repeat that one.
Tim Lanehart.
Hey, Tim, thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Anybody else?
Emily.
Then it's you, Emily.
Emily Lisborg.
And I'm Tim West. So thank you for everybody joining, and I really appreciate it. We have a whole bunch of things on the menu today, most of which I don't want to go ahead and address at all, like minutes from 19 years ago. And I have a question for Kendall, and that is, you gave us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings to approve that were 19 years ago to like 15 years ago. And besides the fact that they might not have been approved way back then, is there any reason why we have to review these at all?
Yes, they still will need to be approved.
Hello, Kendall.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Tim, can you hear me?
Is Kendall here?
He's here. He's trying to talk to you.
Tim, can you hear me?
No, I can't. Speak up, Kendall.
Can you hear me now?
You are in the way background and you're not on a microphone, so.
I'm on two.
Corey, tell them we still need to approve the minutes.
Yes, so this was an audit that was done by our city recorder, and we were told that we still needed to approve these minutes.
Both of those were on.
Okay, very good. So because I, as president, can't go ahead and make a motion to approve minutes, I would like somebody from PRAC to go ahead and say, we would like to go ahead and approve all the minutes from March 23rd, 2023 to March 26th, 2007, including the other 4 there, that we approve them all in one fell swoop. Is that something that we could do? Kendall?
Yes. Can you hear me?
All right?
All right.
I can, and I'd just like somebody at PRAC go ahead and make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve all the prior meeting minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Very good. Let's take a vote. Who would like to go ahead and approve all the minutes that were before us in one fell swoop with this vote?
Tim, I'll go ahead and do a roll call for that.
Okay?
Emily Lisborg,
I vote to approve.
Ken Worcester,
Yes.
Timothy Lanehart,
Aye.
Joey Knopf,
Yes.
Joyce Gifford,
Yes.
and Tim West.
Yes.
Great.
Oh, very good. Thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate that. And before we go any further, I just want to say congratulations to Kendall for getting the budget approved. That will go ahead and allow for hiring 2 more maintenance employees to help Jonathan get things 50 around Oregon City. So congratulations right there. All right. so we'll go to the next thing on the agenda, and that is the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council presentation, Singer Creek and Abernethy Creek Park update.
Can I go ahead and make a quick comment? The city recorder actually had me take minutes for a 2017 PrAC meeting and a 2019, so we will have to approve those at our next meeting. Just as a side note.
Very good. Hopefully it'll be as efficient as today's approval of minutes. So we can move on. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate it. Okay, so moving on down the road, how about our Greater Oregon City Watershed Council?
He's getting public comment.
Are they here to present?
They sure are. Yep.
Tim, just for the record, we did skip public comment. We do not have any public comments tonight, but just want to make sure you're aware of that for the record.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out, and I kind of cruised right on by that one. All right, so forgive me for the omission. So it's time for the presentation.
Hi, are these on? Nice.
Greetings. Yeah. I'm Tom Gaskill. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council.
I'm Willow Michaels. I'm the Confluence AmeriCorps member serving as the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Watershed Council as well. I have a very long title.
And Willow will be giving the presentation tonight. She's been with us for over a year now. So she served part of a term as AmeriCorps last year and then is serving an 11-month position this year. And she's been doing just a wonderful job. So I'm really grateful. And she's got the reins. So
Nice.
whenever you're ready.
Do I just tell you when to go to the next slide?
You may actually be able to use this,
This one here.
I think it might be this one,
Oh, okay.
but I'm also not certain.
Is there
that one, maybe.
a laser pointer on here as well?
There is.
Yeah, if that one doesn't work, then I'm happy to
Yeah.
turn your slides for you.
Okay, great.
But there is a,
Okay. Yeah, the little box down there. Make it present.
Awesome. So I'm here to present some project updates from the work we've accomplished at Singer Creek and Abernethy Creek Park. So let's see if that works. Perfect. Okay. So these are the objectives and the timeline that I presented to you back in October, and this will be the order of the slides that I'll present today. So our primary objectives were the removal of invasive species. We planted native trees and shrubs, and through the removal of invasive species, we were able to release existing native plants to grow freely. We also were engaging and educating with our community. So our timeline, I was onboarded in September of 2022. We had our invasive species removals events in October, November, and December. The plantings were in December and March. We're continuing to have outreach events from, I think, December, April, May, and then probably into June as well. And now we are kind of in our continued maintenance of the site, and we have our exit report in June. And also the image up here is just some of the flyers that I made for the events we had in the past few months. Nice. Okay, so we can start with the invasive removals. So we had 6 events dedicated solely to invasive removals and site preparation for the new plantings. So the majority of the invasives we were removing were blackberry, Himalayan blackberry, and English ivy. So we had 34 total volunteers, that kind of constitutes 93 volunteer hours, and we filled about 20 of those brown bins you can see. That picture is specifically from, I think we had around 25 Boy Scouts come out, and they filled all of those. It was a great event. And we also have a cute picture, and that is another flyer I made as well for the events that we held. Onto the native plant release. So in the before image, you can kind of see the native sword fern, and then afterwards, that was like maybe 15 minutes of work releasing that plant from all of that Himalayan blackberry. But you can see it had a great effect on the plant's livelihood. So part of the work from removing the invasive plants was uncovering these populations of native plants and releasing them to be free to grow in Singer Creek Park. Native plants, they promote biodiversity, they provide shelter and food for animals and wildlife, and pollinators as well. Specifically, our native pollinators are matched greatly with our native plants. So this work also kind of helped us inform where the new plants would be planted. So we were able to see where the established mature native plants were on the site, and we were able to kind of supplement those with our new plantings. Let's see. And this is kind of highlighted here. This is from one of our events. Wait, I have a laser pointer. Can you guys? No, you can't see it. Okay. Anyways, so there's some mature established salmonberry on the right side of this bank here. So we were able to release it from that blackberry and then continuously plant more young salmonberry because we know that they'd be able to thrive and mature in that area. The same thing, we found some native rose and with our fern populations as well, and also some volunteer Western red cedar. So that was really cool to see. Kind of through February and March, we held 5 weekend volunteer events. Here's the species list of the plants that were purchased. So we planted 350 new plants at the site. We chose a mix of the tall, slow-growing trees, some mid-level shrubs, and also some understory plants as well. Some of the reasons why we chose these plants were Pacific willow and red osier dogwood are quick-growing and stream-shading plants. They also really like their roots to be wet, so they're really good for those riparian areas. We also chose plants like white alders, who are more climate resilient and will eventually be able to replace the mature red alders on site. So we're thinking towards the future. There we go. So our planting plan and execution. So the image on the left here was the original plan that I presented to you in October, and the right is actually kind of how it shook out. So the numbers correspond to the planting event and the area we planted. So for example, like our first planting event was for area number 1 on the map. And we were able to do this. The plan was in order to kind of match the right plants with the right area that we're planting for. So for example, number 3 is kind of this like wet riparian area, like right in the stream. That's where we put the willows and the dogwoods and those wet living plants. And then number 5 was this very grassy, shaded or unshaded hill. So we were able to put more slow growing, larger trees that can take up more space. Great. And we have community. So we were able to engage and get our community out to volunteer with us. This is also a good kind of place to highlight the work that the Elyville and Rivercrest Neighborhood Association and Boy Scout Troop 140, and just thank them for all their support and for their volunteer effort throughout the last few months. They were crucial in helping to get all of this work done. So an additional project we've decided to work on is adding a new fence to Singer Creek Park as well. So you can kind of see where the grass fades kind of into the dirt there, and there's some stakes as well. That's where the new fence is going to be proposed. So this will help to protect our new plantings, to protect and kind of skirt people out of those sensitive riparian areas, plus past that large, it might be an oak, I'm not sure, past that large tree there in the center. It's kind of like a steep drop off, so it might help keep your disc golfers out of the creek. So we proposed around 60 feet of new fencing, and the image at the top is kind of a stock photo of what we would like the fence to look like. So it's a split rail design, and I'm currently looking for contractors for this construction. So we can move on to the Abernethy Creek Park update. We had about 25 plants left over from Singer Creek, so we're able to supplement the plantings from years previous at Abernethy Creek Park. We also had the opportunity to host a volunteer day with Benchmade Knives, which is a local company. So they had 12 of their employees come out, 30-ish volunteer hours, so we were able to get those new plants into the ground. We did some native plant education games. We did invasive pulling and weeding. The rainbow photo was just a good site visit with me and Tom. Nice to see it kind of over the park there. So we are also going to be extending the trail that was built last year at Abernethy Creek Park and finishing off the loop. So the proposed plan is to add about 218 feet to the trail to finish it off. The red is the new trail, the green is the existing. It'll be the same construction, so it should blend seamlessly into the old trail with the cedar wood chips. Currently, that application is being reviewed by the city for the NROD exemption. And on the right, you can, if my laser pointer worked, you could kind of see towards like the tree line and through is where the new trail would exist, but you can clearly see it better on the map there. Great. So the Watershed Council is working with a new intern this summer. So myself and the intern will be completing some plant surveys at both Singer and Abernethy Creek Park. So starting next week, we're gonna be cataloging species, location, and vitality. This image is from Derek Palmer's work last year. So we're hoping to do very similar work, but just kind of expand on it. And we'll be doing some site maintenance as well. So kind of refreshing mulch at Abernethy and Singer and checking on those plants and doing the surveys. So lastly, I just want to give a big thank you to John Waverly and his crew. All of this work wouldn't have been able to be done without your support and our partnership together. So I hope that partnership continues to stay strong and we can work through the next few months together as all of these projects kind of wind down. And lastly, I just have a little bit of a sign that I made, and these are at Singer Creek Park around the new plantings, so hopefully people can be educated on what we did. Yeah.
And if I may, I'm going to ring the bell twice here, and not just for John, but for Kendall as well. I'm very, very grateful to the Parks and Recreation Department for all of the contributions of time, really looking carefully through these sites and thinking with us about what we could do together. You're great partners, and that our Watershed Council really has benefited from that relationship. So I just like that acknowledged for the room is we look forward to a continued positive relationship in working with the Parks and Recreation Department. And it's great news to hear that there are a couple more people that will be hired, because I know how fast and how far John and his team are running all the time. So wonderful. Anyway, yeah. Questions?
Yeah.
Well, very much you guys, the Great Oregon City Watershed Council. You guys have done a tremendous amount to go ahead and make a couple of parts of Oregon City a beautiful area and very usable, whereas one time it wasn't so usable. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your efforts. Okay. Does anybody else on PRAC have any questions to the group here?
Yeah.
I just want to echo Tim's thanks for all the work that you all have put in, and having been down to both of those parks a couple of times, Singer Creek, on a weekly basis, the difference is incredible with the amount of invasives that are not there anymore. So, yeah, it's really, really great to see that. And thanks, Willow, for all the signage that you've been sending us, Rivercrest Neighborhood Association, to send out to everyone. And, yeah, looking forward to seeing what your next projects are.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Very good. So, Corey, if I have a suggestion for you, if indeed for the next presentation, if it's a PowerPoint presentation, can you press that little button so that the slide presentation takes over the entire screen instead of it being broken up? That would be great. Okay? So, moving right along.
Tim?
We have, yes?
I believe that Ken had a comment.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe John, this might be best for you, but after you put the fence up, that goal it seems like it's awfully close to where the fence will go. Can you move that so that because otherwise I hate to see that new fence get destroyed, but if people get a foul shot, they're not gonna just leave their disc in the creek.
Understood.
I don't know if there's a way to, shift it a little bit so that the misses.
Yeah, I think that we have moved goals in the past in conjunction with a group who uses the course quite frequently, and so yes, goals can be moved.
Or put a walk, if you want to keep people out, if not, you could put a little walk-through just so they don't use the fence as the ladder to get in.
And I think that's a little bit of the rub that we come up across, because Singer Creek is a very natural park.
Right.
And having the Frisbee golf course at that site, you do get wayward discs. And that is partially why we're hoping that this will prevent people from creating their own paths and trails.
Right.
Yeah, definitely something we can look at.
If I could comment just briefly, I did walk with some of the disc golfers, and I disc golf as well. And when I'm really appreciative, John and his team did move that goal because it was down.
Okay.
It was right down along the creek, and the erosion problems there were very clear. And the folks that I walked with agreed; they thought it was a good solution. So we did work through. However, I think you're right. It's only a partial fix to the problem. I think planting over time, maybe we can come back with another planting at that location and really dense that up so that the discs, if anything, hit the plants, fall to the ground, and maybe someone, a pass through is a possibility, but I think that could be also maybe a future step when we've got some more guarding for the creek there. But yeah, again, it's collaborative, and one of the things I hope we can collaborate on in the future is writing a grant to do some signage there. I think that it would be nice to emphasize that disc golf and natural areas could coexist if people thought about the natural area a little more.
No, it's great work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to bring it up. I play that course probably 3 or 4 times a week. Signage would be such a big part for other people that I've personally told to stay out of these specific areas, and we have to treat it that way, but I know.
Yeah, we had talked, Timothy, about actually having the signage that shows the layout of the hole, and then also maybe has a natural feature on the sign that someone can say, maybe learn something a little bit about, and then talk about it as an ecologically respectful disc golf course, which I think would be a rarity. I played many courses down in Coos Bay where the creek, the bushes, they were just destroyed because people, they go after them.
Yeah, the discs aren't cheap, and
No, they aren't. That's right. You want to get
they're gonna go get them.
So, and I think John's point of compatibility, it is a little tough.
Yep.
It's a natural area, and disc golf is a little less, but we can be creative here, and we'll work with you happily.
And I think that's a great idea with the signage of just the native plants that are there and just learning while you're walking through. Because I bring my 5-year-old and my kids with me all the time, and they love learning about things while we're there. So I love that.
Yeah. I'm a birder as well, and very wonderful birding at Singer Creek, and very sensitive to ground nesting and fledgling birds, which can be damaged by dogs running through or people, so, yeah, thanks.
Can I ask real quick, I'm sure we discussed this before, but can you refresh our memories into what the process for removing, especially the blackberries, I know how pervasive they can be?
Yeah, so we work a lot with the volunteers to mostly get the larger canes from kind of strangling the areas from the larger plants. So we mostly used loppers for that. Then we would drag those larger canes out from the creek area, and then we dig up the roots afterwards, or we'd either flag the roots for the next volunteer to come and dig them out. And then everything is taken off-site. Occasionally we would build some kind of like habitat brambles. So we'd have like kind of some sticks and leaves, some of the canes that we're not gonna reroot, and have them as like little habitat areas, but for the most part, we hauled everything off.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until the next time.
What is the action needed on that one?
It's just an update.
Okay, so
Yeah,
no
yeah,
action needed.
No action needed.
That's not what it says. Okay,
Yes.
we'll change that to a no.
Moving down the line on general business, we have the Park Place Neighborhood Association and the Park Place Metro Enhancement Grant presentation. So I'm sure that Jerry is coming right up to the mic. There he is.
Jackie.
I want to introduce Jackie Hammond to you. The Natural Resource Committee many years ago was being faced with some concerns about agriculture or historic agriculture or possibility of farmers markets in Oregon City, and she advocated for that. She's a member of the Park Place Neighborhood Association, 3 First Citizens Awards for putting that stuff together. So I just want to let her intro the whole thing, and I want to just start out for a moment by saying it was 4 years ago that John Waverly, myself, Soil Water Conservation Service rep, and some other citizens stood near some large Atlas cedars, which are not native, but very prestigious looking, and Oregon white oak, giant tree, about 5 feet in diameter, talking about what can be done at Park Place Park to let people know more about unique aspects of the vegetation there, especially the cinder cone. You have a cinder cone in your city, and it's a pretty interesting feature, which I'll talk about. But let me introduce Jackie.
Oh.
And we'll have to make sure these slides are up on the queue there. Number 1.
I'm not so
Who's
sure
gonna
we
do
have
that?
access to this anymore.
We're not doing it.
We might have blown a bulb.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. They might not have the slides up.
Yeah, we're not sure what's going on with this. We're in
Okay.
touch with the city recorder. But
So can you access, to show it on our screen? Because it was in the email that was sent.
correct, and I'm not sure how to project to your
There's 10
screens.
slides, 1 through 10.
We can see the first slide on the screen right now.
What do you guys see on your screen?
Nothing, it's
Nothing
black.
but that screen behind you slide.
Okay. All right.
Right there.
And we'll just turn the camera over that way.
Yeah, hold on here. Oh, see, that doesn't.
I think that was,
Right, I don't know how to
the pictures aren't there.
slide it over.
It's not showing the whole screen.
Yeah. And this is not a PowerPoint, so I'm not sure how to move it better. See the different views that I've got.
So we have a couple of options. We can attempt to try to get this going, or we can take a 5-minute break restart everything and get that screen back up, see if that screen will come back up.
Let's
So,
try that.
Let's take a
take
5-minute
that
break,
motion.
all right?
5-minute break.
Ready to go.
I'm ready to try to get the screen
Let's
working.
just stay here.
I'm gonna, but I'll be right back.
How are you seeing
We got
something
it.
different?
And now
we
flip
got
the
it.
toggle. I don't know.
I know.
Or maybe-
Thank you so much for whatever
Maybe someone can tell.
did or didn't do.
Jake, you could
There we
go.
go.
I will look like
Green item.
because he's
Right back
fucking
in time.
copies.
There you go, perfect time.
We're trying to get copies. By the time I'm selling, it's probably too late anyway.
Okay, let's
All right, good luck.
see
Thank
here.
you.
You got it. Good deal. Thank you.
You're on split screen, so, yeah, down there you need to be on single screen to see them all at once. There we go.
Tim, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing Park Place, Park, Nature and Pioneer Homestead Trail.
Okay,
Okay, so it's slide number 1. Ready to
Excellent.
Go, Jerry.
Well, okay, Jackie was going to take each of these slides too, but let me just give you an overview of what we're trying to do here. Okay, first of all, we'd like to have your support for a letter of support before the submittal occurs in June 1st. We have 9 other letters of support from school district people, End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, Museum of the Oregon Territory, and others. So we think we have an interesting project. Let me go back into the background while Kendall, I guess, is getting copies for you. 4 years ago, John Waverly and myself and others stood at the base of a hillside, which is Holcomb Hill. Holcomb Hill is a cinder cone. Holcomb Hill is one of the 150 small cinder cones in this area. Actually, it's fairly big. And the pioneers that came across the Oregon Trail had a route, as you know, 2,000 miles long, but one of the worst problems coming off Mount Hood, after they came off Mount Hood, was coming down the Clackamas, fording the Clackamas, and then figuring out how to get up over this obstacle called Holcomb Hill. Holcomb Hill is a cinder cone, as I said, and because of that has a small crater up on top. If you want to see it up near Bradley, you can actually look down and kind of see it. They ran into, once they got up the steep hillsides off the Clackamas to begin to come down to the end of the Oregon Trail at Abernethy Green, then they ran into wetlands, ponds, swamps. They built corduroy roads to get down the slopes of Holcomb Hill to eventually arrive where we, of course, know Abernethy Green was, now covered with a garbage dump. But the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center celebrates that story of the bigger picture, 2,000 miles. They don't celebrate the detail. Years ago, we worked Environmental Learning Center that I operate, and also Rivers of Life Center. We built an interpretive trail at the end of the Oregon Trail that would take you from Independence, Missouri, South Platte, all these different places to eventually Oregon, but there's no detail on that excursion. And so what we're proposing to do is create a real detailed trail system that is not that long, no more than 800 feet, that would take you from Park Place Park, near the Children's Park asphalt trail, cross a gravel road. You probably heard about some property that's somebody might develop up there. This has nothing to do with that area. This is at least 500 feet away from that proposed parcel that somebody might want to build a house. It crosses the road to the dog park, which some of you might be aware of at Park Place Park, and then goes upslope gently into a forest of native trees and shrubs that are truly native trees and shrubs. And there's a whole stand in particular of plants that most people don't understand what they are. Douglas Hawthorne, all right? I played David Douglas in my other life. David Douglas was a great botanist. 1821 he arrived, and he documented everything in Oregon and the Willamette Valley and in this area right here in Oregon City too. And so the Douglas Hawthorne, Oregon White Oak, the other species of evergreens that are there, Western Red Cedar and all that, we want to give people a chance to walk an 800-foot trail and gently come on through the area in a loop back to the beginning point. And we're proposing to do this as an effort with a number of other groups helping us. The Clackamas County Housing Authority, they'd love to see some of their people involved. They're right next door, within a quarter of a mile of Park Place Park. the Soil Water Conservation Service wants to be a participant too, but also we're looking at the Oregon Clackamas County Juvenile Division would like to see some of their more interesting clients that like to work, get into the outdoor environment and help build this. If you'd like to see park trails that we've done up on Mount Scott, there's 3 miles of new trails up there called the Mount Scott Headwaters Interpretive Trail and Environmental Center. We helped the Oregon City Watershed Council with their work on Abernethy Park. And so park work like that, trails and such, is something that we've always tried to do with our group. Now I'm going to let Jackie take over because I talk too much, and you take over.
Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, you've got 3, 4, I'm a bit out of...
Yes, I have this, and don't worry about it, I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yep.
So farms and food, good food, is my passion, but also my passion is nature and the environment, and always has been. I own 3¼ acres in Oregon City and have lived there for 33 years. So I'm now the new treasurer for the Park Place Neighborhood Association, so I'm representing them tonight. And the steering committee and myself are very focused on our one and only park. And we have endured so many developments, and we have grown so much in size in Park Place, but we still have just the one park. And I think Tim said it's a little bit of a blank slate. It is the most beautiful part, though, and we really love it, and we're very proud of it. It has 3 tiers. One is a wooded hillside. Then you come down onto a relatively flat area, which is an off-leash dog park. There's bathrooms there. Currently, they're not open because the city can't find valid park hosts. So that's a bit of a shame. But, you know, I guess they're few and far between to find reliable people. But so the bathrooms are closed. We have the dog park. And then we have the playground structure, which we actually, the neighborhood association, had to write a grant for and put in many volunteer hours because I believe the original park structure was burnt down. It was wooden. Somebody set fire to it. So our neighborhood association wrote a Metro Enhancement grant a few years ago and got some nice equipment. I wouldn't say it's very big compared to other parks, but my grandsons enjoy it. And so it's the wooded hillside, the flatter area, which is where the dogs run, and then across the gravel road and down another slope through the Atlas Cedars is the children's playground. And then there's a lovely grassy area, which a few weeks ago was just magnificent. It's ringed with some crabapple trees, which are all in blossom. The daisies were out because the grass had grown a little bit. They hadn't been out to cut it, and it was just beautiful. There's a little path going all the way around it. I think it's about 18 acres total. I don't know. But certainly a big portion of that is this wooded hillside. And 2 years ago, we were under the gun because we heard that there was going to be a road cut right the way through it to access this parcel of land, which somebody else owns and wanted to develop. Well, that really panicked us. And I can't remember the whole sequence of events, but eventually that kind of got taken off the table. And then it came back about 6 months ago. Not the same angle of road. It was going to be a shorter road, but it would have devastated at least 3 major trees. And one of these major trees is the white oak, which is almost 300 years old. And if you think about that, that's before the white man came here. This is when the indigenous peoples were settled here. This tree has seen enormous history. So that kind of captivated us, and we thought, oh my gosh, if they bring this road in, as it turns, it's going to come right over the roots and would compact them. And maybe they wouldn't kill it initially, but gradually it would have died. And we've had arborists out to verify what we're saying is true. And then also it would have impacted the 6 Atlas Cedars. And as Jerry said, they're not native, but they're very well adapted to our coming climate, which is warmer and drier, potentially. And they're in good health. and they're magnificent, and there's 6 of them in a row. Like, who the heck was planting 6 in a row back then? So to find 1 is pretty rare, but to find 6, and they stand like sentinels, and they give a beautiful backdrop to the kids' playground. And there's some wonderful big boulders there, and the kids just love climbing up the boulders and running in and out the trees and coming back down. So when this second attempt at the road was brought to the table again, we kind of got a little focused, to say the least, on our park. And, you know, our shoulders went up, and we thought, heck, we're going to show this park some love. And we knew that the Metro Enhancement Grant was coming up, and we know Jerry and Jerry's work, and the Rivers of Life Center is stellar work. So we've partnered with Jerry and his group, and we're going to write a grant and submit it to bring in some dollars to give this park some love. Currently, we have the relatively small playground structure, the bathrooms that are closed, and we have 1 park bench, and that's it. So we wanted to bring more people to the park. We wanted to tell the story, the geological, the history of this area. We wanted to educate people about the trees. We want to have a plaque in front of the oak, in front of the Atlas cedars, in front of the native plantings. We want to break through that wooded area and go up and create, as Jerry said, a trail through it, and highlight the native species and how they were incorporated potentially in indigenous medicine and you know, building materials and stuff. So we're pretty passionate about this project, and we see it as the beginning of many more projects. I think by educating people, and I'm very passionate about educating youth, unless the youth today are engaged and understand what they're viewing, what they're seeing, what they're smelling, what they're feeling in a park, they're less likely to protect it. If they don't understand the environment, they're not going to stand up for it. So we really want to have this interpretive aspect of this project to teach the children and the youth and adults. You know, I've met with adults there at the park, and some of them don't know that this is Atlas cedar. These are trees from the Moroccan mountains, and this is a really old oak, and that's a beautiful Douglas fir. And so I think adults will definitely benefit too. And in speaking with the principal at Holcomb, he was all over this. He thought this was fabulous, and we have his letter of support, and he's willing to, you know, talk to the teachers and potentially get some kids down there doing field trips, doing some study work on it. So this is incorporating education into parks. And then I talked to the parent-teacher liaison down at the Alliance Charter School, which is right opposite, and they're very excited about this project. A lot of the teachers, a lot of the parents use this park when they're coming or going, picking up their kids. The teachers use it on their break time to walk around. They were all over it. They were terribly excited. And this woman said that their school has a workshop, a woodworking class workshop. And she said, oh my, maybe we can partner with you. Maybe the kids could get involved. Maybe they could make some signposts. Maybe they could make some benches on the trail. You know, so I think there's that aspect too, that we're going to bring in more partners, you know, if this project goes ahead. So, you know, that's the neighborhood association's attitude towards our park. We love it. It's our only one. We're going to give it some love, and this is just the beginning. Do you want to go ahead, Jerry, and maybe talk about the different aspects?
Slide number 3, we'll go through this a little quicker so we're not taking too much of your time. Slide number 3, which is this thing. I don't know, do they have these things in front of them?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Slide number 3 is just a general concept plan, which we showed to John and other people, Waverly, as what this trail might look like. It would parallel the existing gravel road. People would walk from the playground park, which is asphalt trail, across the road, which is a gravel road about 10 feet wide, into a corridor that would go adjacent to the road and lead you up into a gentle hillside, which we have to very carefully grade the hillside to keep the grades suitable for any walking people, and then penetrate into the park. Now, there's always things that you encounter. And John pointed out, just look at that poison oak. I said, John, you're right, that poison oak. Climbing up some outside trees. There's only a few places that there's poison oak in this area, and it's where they've gone up the outside trees. Many years ago, I figured out how to deal with poison oak with rock salt. You can't believe what a good herbicide that is, okay? It does change the chemistry of the soil, kills the plant, it will not come back, doesn't have any persistent values, but one way or the other, once you penetrate, as per the design, into the forest, now you're in deep shade. There's no ivy in there, hardly at all. There's only pretty much open structure, and the hawthorns that are in there, sometimes they're 2 to 3 inches diameter, sometimes they're 6 inches diameter. There's a lot of them. Could make very nice edging on the trail, on the downslope side, so that the trail doesn't have to be cut into the soil as much as laid on top of the soil. At Abernethy Park, worked with Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, we worked with them. Their desire was to have wood chips. John has not told us what he'd like to have, but whatever the community would like to have for a surface, we want it to be low maintenance, no maintenance as much as possible. Who would maintain this thing? It's 800 feet long. We're willing to give 3 years of effort as the establishment period. Our organization, with the Oregon City Junior ROTC cadets, I have 50 of them that work with us right now. There's 110 of them in the Junior ROTC. 50 of them come out to the events that we do up on Mount Scott and other places, and I really think this is a place that Oregon City can celebrate that senior high school component here in our area. So that's what the plan is all about in general concept form. Who would benefit from this? Mention some partners. End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center wants to be a partner in this because they don't have a detailed way to show real fine detail of the Oregon trails that came into Oregon City. Their interpretive message is much more general. They would help us with brochures and other literature and be willing to provide, they've already told us that in a letter, which we have, that they'd be willing to provide interpretive staff to be a part of this whole thing. Museum of the Oregon Territory has a similar interest. The Clackamas County Juvenile Division has 4 or 5 young people per week that they'd like to see, the more selected ones, be out on field trips. This would be field work, this would be one of their project areas. The Clackamas County Housing Authority, which has many homes in that area, you probably know about that, is looking for something for their people that live in their area to do. So those are at least the basic partners. And then, of course, our organization, Rivers of Life Center, would be the people with the equipment and other suppliers and orchestrators of the manpower. Oregon Youth Corps used to be Oregon Youth Conservation Corps, got renamed, and they provide us with a lot of support throughout the year for various projects. And so that state-sanctioned organization would be one of our partners. And so the beneficiaries, one, are the young people, which have a chance to be participating in this type of project, the community which have built it. Up on Mount Scott, there's a lot of Asian folks and other people up there, cultural interesting groups. And my gosh, all the signage we put up there, maybe 20-some signs, nobody has touched anything in 3 years now. We want to work with Oregon City Sign Company, an Oregon City effort here up on top of the hill by Buell's Printing. They produce a sign that's industrial. Diabond, it's called. It doesn't weather, it doesn't fade. At the Environmental Learning Center at the college, we use a different kind of material that tends to fade. Well, their signs have not changed character at all now in over 3 years. So the interpretive messaging would be kept very simple. Describe the major trees, describe the hawthorn forest and some other elements like that. Keep it really simple. We're looking at maybe 4 to 5 signs at the most in this whole thing. So that's the detail there. You want to continue?
Well, you can go to slide 6. It just shows some photographs of work that the Rivers of Life have already performed. And slide 7 kind of reiterates what Jerry just said about the partners in this project, and there are quite a few, as you can see. We think we can get native plant material, partial donations, McFarlane bark for their surfacing materials. So, yeah, there's just a lot of people very interested in supporting us. So 8, I think we go to, I think you've already talked about that, the Housing Authority, Juvenile Services, And then 9 is the cultural history, which you've already alluded to.
Well, let me talk about that for just a minute. Everyone thinks Dr. John McLaughlin was the main person behind the settlement at Willamette Falls. That is true. But the Oregon Trail delivered in 1851, the first wagon train coming here, large wagon train, was Hiram Strait. And the Hiram Strait donation land claim is all the area that we think of as Abernethy Green. It's the area that we think of as Green Point. If you don't know where Green Point is, that's where the Abernethy flows through to the Willamette River in a small settlement there, where people used to fish directly from the river and bring up their catch, gill nets and other things. Hiram Strait came here in 1851. He came over Holcomb Hill to get here. And the Hiram Strait donation land claim is all the bottomland that we should call, or we do call, the North End District of Oregon City. Very important person. That message has never been shared with people, and it should be. That's part of what we would do with interpretive messaging. So that cultural history not being told is something we think needs to be told. And the End of the Oregon Trail agrees, and so does the Museum of the Oregon Territory.
And we also very much want to bring in the history of the indigenous peoples too.
Native people.
So, yeah, the native people. So, you know, we want to tell that as well in our interpretive signage. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. I think that's a great presentation, and it's such a worthy cause to go ahead and make use of this really blank slate that sits in Park Place. And but on Monday, I had a chance to walk the area a little bit and saw that across that gravel road, there really isn't very much right now, and yes, indeed, it does need some development. But I also noticed that the map that you provided with the 800 feet of trail really only services a small portion of what the city has designated as the official park boundaries. And there's a couple of things that I'd like to see. One is, how about utilizing the entire park? And I know that grade is an issue because some people aren't able to hike real steep things. But the thing is, Jerry, you pointed out that this is a cinder cone, and right now, all what a person could see is a deep forest, very thick forest. So, what can you do to go ahead and provide more trails to utilize, like, the entire park?
To answer that question, the reason we stayed out of the parcels more to the north was that's where the lot is that nearby that possibly could develop. But there's no reason this trail couldn't go further in many directions. What we were doing, to be honest with you, became very obvious to me and my young people, which I asked to help me plot the route, that we can use game trails. And the game trails are really, they figured out the best route for them, and that's the route that we're following, the deer trails that are in that area. But there's no reason they couldn't expand over time if that was if that was the desire that the Park Place Neighborhood Association.
Yeah, I agree, Tim, and I think that we're going to break the back of it, but this, as I alluded to earlier, is not just going to be the one-time project. We want to add on to this. It would be fabulous to open up that whole hillside with a whole string of different trails, but rather than be too ambitious and fall down, we thought we would do the interpretive signage, the native plantings, the initial trail route through the forest, and if that comes off great and everyone's real happy with it, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't push further and apply for more grants and bring in more money and expand the trails.
Yeah.
Very good. So, Jerry, is there any way that anybody could see that this is a cinder cone from utilizing your 800-foot trail?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Is there a way that you could point out that this is indeed a cinder cone that you're walking talking on.
Absolutely. You know, we forgot to mention a gentleman that found out about this, Dr. Scott Burns. He's Professor Emeritus of Geology. He loves, you know, geology, and Oregon City's just full of very unique geology. The cinder cones here and Mount Scott, where we've been doing our work, are very misunderstood. And yes, the dioramas and depictions that we can do with the Oregon City sign will show that whole dynamic. They're very recent features. They're not millions of years old. They're fairly recent features. Point out what they were in terms of creating the landscape, but what were they in terms of how the pioneers had to interact with them. Mount Scott and that area out in Happy Valley is pioneer heaven out there because of the soils that were created for the pioneer usage. And that's also what became obvious. And that all those things are things Dr. Scott Burns wants to help us with the interpretive message.
Very good. I see that this is a very well thought out plan. I like the plan, the first step in developing this project. And I'd like to open up this to the other PRAC members. Do we have any other questions on the PRAC board?
Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you. So I have a couple different questions. One is that who would be the fiscal agent for the grant? Is it the neighborhood association, so the city doesn't have to do
the Rivers of Life Center.
Well, it's actually going to be a joint application. I told them you got me into this, so it's going to be a joint application from the Park Place Neighborhood Association and Rivers of Life Center. And we may be the fiscal agent, or they may be. We have to sort that out to make sure that the city's process is satisfied. And the cost right now of this whole thing, looking at 800 feet, that's a lot of area of lineal footage, is about $32,000 to get this thing going, roughed out, and surfaced, including some native plants. Believe me, there's more that would have to go into it, and that's where the donations are very important.
Right. Yeah. So if the city's not the fiscal agent, and I don't know, Kendall, does that get the city out of the contracting rules and that sort of thing, or is it, I'm not clear how that part would work, but, you know, but it's important for some of these, you know, because 32,000 is a lot of money, but it's also not a lot of money. Like when you start dealing with the follow-up reporting and everything that the city, whoever's obligated as the fiscal agent to, you know, you got 5 or 10 years of reporting afterwards that kind of comes in handy. Does 800 feet fall below any sort of land use threshold? It seems like it's a fair, so again, 800 feet's a long trail and a lot of work, but it's also not. So I don't know what that threshold is for land use, and maybe we don't even want to ask. Well, you know what I mean? No, but it's because there's all of these other things that, and what I really like about it is that there's no houses or anything real close, so you're not going to have immediate opposition, and so it's a neat little project. And if it's something that you can just do versus going through, because you could eat up $30,000 in a land use application. And I don't know what that is.
You brought it up, so.
Okay, sorry. So it's on me now, right?
It's a very sheltered site, and by the way, Natural Resource Overlay District, I know that thing backwards and forwards, that ordinance. This does not trigger NROD because of wetlands or that type of thing. There's no active streams. There are a bunch of seeps that occur because of hillside, but it doesn't have the kind of complexity that sometimes a stream that you can't be too close to, that whole business.
So what is the actual ask? You just want from the PRAC, just a
letter of recommendation.
Yeah. Normally in these situations, PRAC writes a letter of recommendation that they can present to the Metro Enhancement.
Oh, just to help facilitate the grant. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just for my orientation, the picture that we're looking at, kind of in the center left a little bit of the picture, is that where the host camping trailer was when this aerial view was taken?
Center left, actually it's kind of up in the right hand.
Oh, yes.
Right above the
Versus.
Not the house, but yes,
Right there,
okay.
yeah.
Right there, yeah.
And hopefully there will be a
Okay,
park
just wanted
host.
to orient myself
Yeah.
on this overview. So right now, there's nothing, there's no camping trailer at that spot.
No.
And this particular trail, I don't think it could be wheelchair friendly necessarily, but is it going to be stroller friendly? Is it, for families to bring kids?
Is it going to be stroller friendly?
Oh, is it going to be stroller friendly? It has to do with the surfacing we put on it.
Yeah.
If it's
Hopefully.
wood chips, which was done in a couple areas, that's a little less stroller friendly. If it was compacted wood waste, that's a much more firm material. It could be even gravel for that matter if we want to do that. But we need to work that out with John Waverly to see what he would really like to see there. But yes, we do not want people to sink in or disappear in any way on this stroll.
And we want to make it as accessible to as many people and as many groups and types of people, elderly, young, kids, families, we need to get people into this wooded area and really loving it. Yeah.
I think just to follow up quick on Tim's point of it's taking up not the entire lot. I think what I like about that is it's drawn out currently is that when you're actually on that trail, I imagine that it feels very private. You have trees on both sides. You're not kind of just walking a perimeter trail. And yeah, it seems like, if there is a development over there, then perhaps that community would want access to the park. I don't know the exact geography of this to know if you could walk around or just walk through, but it seems like there's options there for more accessibility. And it's an exciting project.
So I do have one more question, and that is, so you have a lot of support for this, Jerry. I think that's tremendous. You have the physical and a lot of the material support being donated to you. That's tremendous. What kind of Oregon City financial support are you looking for?
Well, the number one thing to build this thing, we need to access the building funds, which is the Metro Enhancement grant process. As far as long-term funding, the Neighborhood Association is looking at what they can do on that to help with maintenance costs and things of that nature. I again stressed earlier that we will give 3 years worth of maintenance and establishment to this effort because I work with the junior LTC folks all the time, and this would be a great project to mobilize 20 or 30 of them at a time on. The hope was to start this work this fall and have it done before next spring, that is before May. That's the goal. But for long-term funding from the city of Oregon City, we worked hard to get you some parks funding. So we want to get you more, by the way. So I'm not sure how to answer the question of more funding coming from the city as much as more community spirit getting behind it. And the Housing Authority, they have quite a bit of resources, money, and other resources that they can help us with if they see this, and they do, as a valuable feature.
I think that's tremendous, and it's a great use of grant money. And do you have this grant money secured, or do you need our letter of support from the PRAC committee before you apply for this money?
Yeah.
That's very important, before June 1st.
Yes, before June 1st.
We have 9 other letters right now, and we would have been to see you earlier, but I'll be honest with you, it just wasn't, we were busy trying to help with some funding for parks.
But one more question is that because this is a city charter park, right? Are we going to need to have this whole thing go through some kind of a master plan with the park? I'm hoping not, because that drags a lot of feet. So just as a question, as that we as a PRAC board say, we support this plan as it has been presented, and write a letter of support if we so vote that way. And from there, we are not going to have to, Matt, looking at you two guys, have this go through a parks
Master plan
planning
process.
thing. I just want to make sure, because it is a city charter park.
Question. I'll have to have some conversations with city leadership about what would be appropriate with it. This is for recreation purposes, so in regards to having to go to a vote of the people, anything associated with it being a charter park, that's not going to be a problem. The size of this project, I'm thinking we shouldn't have to do any master planning on our side to be able to do something like that, but I will definitely verify that.
Just wanted to make sure we dot our i's and cross our t's.
That's a good point.
So Kendall, this sounds like a great program to enhance a park that Oregon City already has at some, with utilizing some volunteer and donated funds or materials. I think that if indeed the PRAC takes a vote on this and approves it, will you go ahead and write the letter of support for the Park Place Foundation here to move forward on pursuing this grant?
We will draft talking points, and then we will work with you on creating a final draft and have you approve and sign off on it before it's submitted.
Oh, thank you.
Do we have to vote on this right now with our PRAC committee?
Looks like Ken has a
One more.
question.
So is the neighborhood association, this has been presented to them and they've,
Oh, yeah.
so, I mean, they've voted on it or they
Yes, yeah,
somehow endorsed it?
We just had a general meeting, in fact, at the local church about 10 days ago. And I presented an update where Jerry and I were on this whole project. And yeah, they're very much in favor,
I
very
think
much. Yeah.
The immediate neighbors are,
Yes, yes. And in fact, when I go to the park a lot and, you know, when I see other walkers and dog owners and stuff, you know, I'm chatting to them about it and they're always like, oh yeah, this sounds great, you know. So, yeah, and as I say, the school is right opposite Lions Charter School, pretty much kitty corner. And they're all over it too, yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of support for it because this park is great, but it just needs more. It needs to be enhanced. It has so much potential. So I don't think we're going to stop here. If we do indeed get your support, get the grant, you know, we may well be going back for another Metro Enhancement grant, you know, next year or the year after to add on to this and continue to show this park some love because it is our only park.
I'm just trying to think if there's any other little landmines that we need to worry about, but I guess I'd be ready to make a motion then. Tim, are you ready for one?
I'm ready for you to do it, thanks.
Okay. I guess I would like to move that the PRAC work with staff and the neighborhood association to draft a letter of support for this particular project. I don't know that I want to obligate us or the park for the future part of that because we're in the middle of a master plan and I don't want to circumvent that process. But this is really a pretty small, I mean, it's big, it's a lot of work, but it's small in the big picture of things. And so I would just like to move that we offer our support for this.
If you shorten that up a whole lot, I could second it, but just that.
Just that last sentence.
The PRAC, write a letter of support for this Metro Enhancement Grant for the Park Place Park project.
Thank you.
So I'll second if you agree with that word. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll go ahead and do a roll call. Emily Lisborg,
Support.
Joyce Gifford,
Yes.
Joseph Knopf,
Yes.
Timothy Lanehart,
Aye.
Kim Worcester,
Yes.
and Tim West.
Yes.
Excellent.
Great, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you,
Thank
it
you.
means a lot. We
Appreciate
appreciate it.
Very good. I think I appreciate you guys making your presentation, and I think that this is a great start to make this park a whole lot better than what it is right now.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what phase 2 and 3 are going to be.
Okay. Well, when we get it done, we'll invite you all. You'll have to come and see it.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So, moving on to the next point of general business is the introduction of Cecily Rose, our social services and community center manager.
So it's my pleasure to introduce our new Social Services and Community Center Manager, Cecily Rose. Cecily was with the Malala Adult Community Center for the past 10 years as the director there. She has an extensive experience working with seniors. She started with Oregon City on May 8th, and we were very excited and very happy to have her be a part of the Oregon City family. So I'll turn it over to Cecily.
Yeah, thank you. So again, my name is Cecily Rose. If you mispronounce that at any point, that's 100% fine. It's a very unique name, and I'm used to that. But yeah, I think Kendall really covered it. You know, I'm very passionate about social services. I'm passionate about the aging population, and I have had great experience in this county, being a subrecipient agreement contractor with the county. We're a pretty small network, so I've actually been watching the city of Oregon City and just been thoroughly impressed the last 10 years with the vibrant adult community center that is here. And to be a part of it now is exciting. And I'm extremely excited that it is under a Parks and Rec umbrella, so to speak. I think that, you know, the potential is huge for growth, and just excited to be here. So it's an honor. Thank you.
Welcome.
Definitely, we look forward to working with you. Thanks for your service for this. So we look forward to big things at the senior center. Any other questions from the PRAC staff? All right, so I'd like to interject one thing into the agenda. I don't know if it's allowable, but I'm going to make it so because I'm the president, okay? And that's member reports before we go on to PRAC bylaw review, all right? So all the PRAC members that are sitting on the microphones right now, you guys have any reports that you guys would like to go ahead and bring to light right now? So Ken, do you have anything to say?
I'm good this time.
Anybody else?
Just a quick update. I'm also on the CIC and the NRC, and in the past 6 months, it's been a couple months now since it was discussed, but there was a unanimous vote to recommend support of the BCD program through the Xerxes Center for Invertebrate Conservation, and that's something that I think hopefully will be talked about at a commission meeting, but I just want to get that on the list of potential future agenda items. I noticed that it wasn't. I think maybe I brought it up once before, but to just make sure that that's on there as a possibility.
Very good. Bee City being different from Butterfly City, right?
Yeah, I'm not actually familiar with Butterfly City, but there's a lot of Tualatin's a Bee City, I think Eugene, and I know Portland has kind of experimented in some of their neighborhoods with doing like a pesticide-free park in some areas, but there's a lot of Pacific Northwest communities that have adopted the Bee City, and there's an incredible like online forum that all the cities can discuss their IPM and kind of what has and hasn't worked for them. So it's not only kind of just like committing to it, but it's also gaining access to a lot of really great resources.
Very good. You put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Yes, no? Okay, I have something that I'd like to bring up, and that is in regards to Hillendale pickleball courts. The club up there would love access to the water that's available on the spigot that's right next to the courts, so that the club could go ahead and utilize volunteer efforts to power wash the courts and get them clean. Right now, they haven't been power washed for a year or so, and all the muck and dirt is making it slippery when it's wet. So, Jonathan, if you could give us some access to that water, it would certainly make it easy for us to clean and not involve any city staff besides just turning on that water so we could use it. Is that something that we could do?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much for us to turn on water. I know that our staff had brought this up to me, and we do have a couple of our seasonal staff that will be starting here shortly, and that was one of the tasks that we were going to charge them with upon starting for the city. But I'm assuming that we can work through this, so.
Great, I'll get a hold of you later on in the week, okay, or next week, okay? Thank you very much. All right. Anything else from any PrAC member? No, so we move on, and we're going to look at PrAC bylaw reviews. And I'm sure this is a Kendall thing. So Kendall, go ahead.
Actually, Ken brought this up at the last meeting, so I'll turn it over to all of you to have conversation around the bylaws.
Are you ready? So the only revision I thought might be necessary was to bump the meeting hours up to 6 o'clock. Just to be consistent with the bylaws. I think the bylaws say that we'll meet at 7. So I think 6 works best for staff for sure, and I think it works well for us. So I would like to move that we revise the bylaws to have our meetings start at 6 p.m. versus 7 o'clock.
I'm just going to chime in for one other item that's in that same section. We've had to cancel some meetings because of the network being down. So currently we have in our bylaws that we have to meet a minimum for 9 regular meetings annually. And that's not something that we have in other committees' bylaws. A lot of committees build in a certain level of flexibility to if you do have to cancel, you don't have a certain number of mandatory meetings. So that could be something that could also be reviewed as well.
I'm okay in adjusting that for less than, or 9 meetings or less, depending upon our agenda. And I know that there's things to talk about most months, and as of the first of the month, I think, or first of the year, I think we had a couple of meetings that we didn't have an agenda. So Ken, I like your motion. I can't second that, but I think that somebody else in the room could go ahead and second that, and at least we'll be able to go ahead and make this uniform meeting at 6 o'clock starting. So anybody else go and second that?
I think I'd amend the motion that we start at 6 and end no later than 9, so we can specify the same 3-hour window.
Do I hear a second?
I would second that.
I'll do a roll call.
Can we discuss that?
You want to discuss this? Go ahead.
I want to discuss the amendment if possible.
Okay.
So my only concern about, I kind of agree with the 3-hour window, but I do have a concern about, if with some of the things that are on the agenda, there is the potential of having, maybe needing an extra half hour or something. So if there was a way to maybe include, say by vote of the PrAC to extend the meeting if we need to, on an individual or a case-by-case basis versus, a hard stop, so that, normally I think 3 hours is plenty.
I
but-
think that makes sense.
But if, just in case we do want to, finish 15 more minutes, I don't want to be bound by a specific time. So maybe just a quick vote by the PrAC at that meeting to extend, just so that it's just not a hard end.
And no later than
I like that.
9 unless by vote of members present.
Right. Something like that would work perfect for me.
So we're rescinding the,
Yeah.
okay, and we're modifying. So do you want to repeat?
Yes. So I will throw out there, I'd like to move that we begin our meetings at 6 PM and that with a traditional ending time of 9 o'clock, unless voted to extend by the PrAC that night. It's kind of a weird way. It's not,
Members present?
yeah, by members present.
I second that.
Do I hear a second?
We did have a second.
Yeah.
Roll call.
And I'll do a roll
All right.
call. Emily Lisborg,
Support.
Joyce Gifford,
Yes.
Joseph Knopf,
Yes.
Timothy Lanehart,
Yes.
Ken Worcester,
Yes.
and Tim West.
Yes.
I think we should address what you just said about the minimum of 9 regular meetings as well.
Right, and then just to be clear, all of these changes have to go to the city commission for approval. Okay.
So how do other committees, do they not have language at all about a minimum number of meetings or?
Some have language that says as needed. Some say bi-monthly and with the ability to call special meetings if needed, to just kind of build in that level of flexibility.
Question?
I like the flexibility part, and I think that as needed would mean that we could have meetings monthly, more or less, as needed.
An example that I have is something that the Art Commission uses. It says, shall hold an official meeting at least bi-monthly, every other month, and may hold special meetings as needed.
Did we meet that criteria in like November, December, January? Every other?
So we were meeting the criteria that we currently have
Yeah,
in
but
our
I mean,
bylaws.
would we have met that criteria? I can't remember if we skipped 2 months consecutively or.
We don't normally skip 2 months consecutively. Normally November,
November,
we don't
December,
meet.
right.
And then we have a meeting in December. And then there were times where we would not meet. I think it was August,
Yeah.
if my memory serves me
I'm
correctly.
just trying to remember this last, like a few months ago. I feel like we didn't have a meeting
was
in
no
January.
April meeting.
There was no
But there was one before that too. that-
network.
There was no
We had some
network for those
network
2 meetings.
disruption
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That made us have to cancel. Go ahead, Ken.
Do you like the idea of a number at all, or do you just want to just say bi-monthly or a minimum of bi-monthly?
If we say a minimum bi-monthly, you could say a minimum of 6, because that way, if something's important, we can meet every month, but then if there's nothing going on and we don't need to meet between October and January,
Yeah.
we don't have to do it every other month. We could have a 3-month break as long as we've met that a minimum of 6 regular meetings as a possibility.
I guess the concern or question I have is then who determines as needed, or who determines the need?
That would be the chair and the parks
Yeah.
director.
Who decides that?
Well, we meet with the chair and the vice chair in advance of the meetings to go through the agenda. So that would be the opportunity to say, this is what we have. Or even in a previous meeting where we know that we're not going to have a heavy agenda for the next meeting, or we have a conflict, we can discuss it in the
Kind of like
previous
that,
meeting
I
as
think,
well.
I like that approach, to maybe kind of kick it around and the meeting prior, and I know it's hard because you don't know to be able to bring us an agenda a month ahead of time. It's probably hard enough to do it 10 days sometimes, but if there's a way to just kind of forecast a little bit what we'll be discussing.
Right.
Maybe even during the report period or something, so that we could say, yeah, do we really need to or do we not? But I know that, there's just so many wheels moving around, and it's hard. That it would be nice to be able to just kind of have so that we all kind of know what we're looking at. And
Yep.
So I think that would be a good approach. I just don't know how to put it into motion.
It seems that there's enough information most months to go ahead and have a meeting, however long. And typically our meetings are at least a couple hours, it seems. But I think that there's, it's a rare time when there isn't a lot to go ahead and discuss. So Ken, I'm with you. I don't know how to go ahead and put this into words, other than an attempt will go ahead and be made so that we have monthly meetings, unless there isn't enough to talk about. And I guess that is determined at a couple of weeks before our meeting. Kendall and Corey meet with the president, vice president, and say, hey, do we have enough to discuss? So, in most cases, it's been yes.
Tim, I'm thinking that these are bylaws, okay? These are important. If we put that on line 1 under meetings, a minimum of 6 regular meetings scheduled annually, kind of planning ahead, and then line 2, where it says the chair and the recreation director or city commission can call special meetings as needed anytime. So if there's an important thing coming up, a big change to a master plan or, disaster that needs to be dealt with, of course we can have more meetings. But I think what we might need, just think, it's that number 9 on line 1, that's been kind of a sticky point. So if it's 6, that's pretty easy to meet, but expecting that we hope that there's going to be more than that.
So what if we say shall hold an official meeting, at least 6 meetings, official meetings annually, and may hold special meetings as needed? Does that make sense?
That's covered on line 2. On line 2, it says that.
So
It's the goal to go ahead and meet every month, if there's enough subject matter to talk about, with a minimum of 6 meetings to go ahead and be held annually.
Maybe it would work if we do a minimum of 6 or bi-monthly meetings, and because we already have the sentence, or that kind of the last half of that first sentence that says at a time and place agreed upon by the committee, maybe we could just have something on the agenda right before reports, or right before the meeting closes, about the next meeting, just so that we get to discuss and say, okay, do we have enough for next month or not? We could make that determination a month ahead of time, basically. And then obviously you can call a meeting at any time you want, because that's already built in. But at least that way we can kind of say, what's next month look like? And, oh gosh, let's just bump that to the following, because it's kind of already in there. I don't know that we need to overthink it too much, but I think that gives us the flexibility.
Can I make a motion then to change that? A minimum of 6 regular meetings shall be scheduled, at a time and place agreed upon by the committee, taking out the word annually, because that seems to indicate that at the beginning of the year, we're going to set in stone when these meetings are going to be. Besides, it needs to be unscheduled anyway.
Kendall, what would you like to see?
I think it's fine to say a minimum of 6 regular meetings shall be scheduled annually at a time and place agreed upon by the committee. And then we have the additional change about the start time with, like, we can vote to extend that if we need to by a vote of the committee. I think that checks off all the boxes.
Could we also have the, option of scheduling more meetings if there's a need for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because that.
Yeah, and it seems appropriate that they not necessarily be bi-monthly because of the holiday schedule, like November, December, January might be kind of, might be hard to hit 2 out of those 3 months or, some of the holiday months.
So we would just change it to a minimum of 6 regular meetings shall be scheduled annually, and then leave the rest of it, except for we'll change it to start time at 6. And then that way we can kind of get a feel at our meeting of whether we're going to meet the next month or not.
Yep.
That seems to work, I think, without getting overly into a bog on this.
Well, that sounds good. I think that a minimum of 6 meetings would leave us very open to more, if indeed the subject matter requires. So, do we have a motion?
I will move that we also amend line 1 to say a minimum of 6 regular meetings instead of 9. And that the meeting shall ordinarily begin at 6 p.m. and end no later than, well, we already voted on that part of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so the motion is just to change the 9 to a 6.
yes.
Seconded.
Roll call, Emily
you're a
Lisborg.
We got a second, Tim. Thanks.
Okay.
Roll call, Emily Lisborg.
Yes, support.
Joyce Gifford.
Yes.
Joseph Knopf.
Yes.
Tim Lanehart.
Yes.
Ken Worcester.
Yes.
And Tim West.
Yes.
Great.
Sounds like it passed. All right. Very good. Thank you, PrAC members. All right. Moving on down the road is the item number 10, which is PrAC Park Tours. And Kendall, do you have something for us?
Yes, we've had many conversations about setting up some time to do some tours of our parks. And I wanted to bring this back to have some conversation about days and times. Been having some conversations with John, our parks manager, and what we like to do is propose Wednesday, July 26th as a date to do the tour. And in regards to time, I wanted to have some additional conversation about that. Obviously, we all work, so it'd have to be after 5. And have some conversations around transportation as well. But we're proposing this date. There's a couple of reasons. The weather is much better and conducive for the tours. The other thing is the 27th is we have our concerts in the park. So we could utilize this park tour as a scheduled meeting for us to go do a tour of the parks, and it would work. It seems that like it would work for everyone who would be involved. So just wanted to bring that forward, have some additional conversations about date and time and transportation, and based on those conversations, we can put together a schedule and get that arranged.
What day of the week is that?
That's
That sounds like a great idea, and I'm sure that, I don't know, you probably have access to those senior center vans. And it probably could fit all of the PRAC members right in that. Would that work?
Yeah. We will explore that.
Okay.
Just gotta find a
I think that's great. And so what do we have to do? A doodle poll to see if the 26th of July is going to work? Or how is this going to proceed, Kendall?
So, I mean, we can go around the table and everyone can provide some feedback on date, time, and provide some input on what they think about that.
Well, the 26th works for me. I could do that.
26 works for me.
Yeah, same here. Question though, you said something about we can maybe make it our sort of official meeting for that month. Is that a problem that it's a Wednesday and not a Thursday?
No,
think
it
so,
wouldn't.
right?
The only problem we would have when we change meetings is if we were meeting here and someone else was utilizing that, obviously we would advertise it like a regular meeting well in advance so people know what we're doing. So if the community wanted to stop by and take part in the tour,
They wanted to
could.
drive out to the parks and meet us at the parks, and especially, we would love to meet the neighbors, the
There you go.
locals
Yeah.
at the parks. And that has
Give
happened
them
in the
a
past.
schedule of,
Yeah,
yeah?
I like that. Yep, the 26th works for me.
Anybody else on the 26th?
26 works for me. I can make any time work that day.
All in agreement over here.
All right.
Awesome. So let's make it so.
26. Timing is a question.
And what time?
John, what are your thoughts on timing? 6 o'clock?
Can you cover it in 3 hours?
We would pick out some major parks that we really wanted to highlight because we have activity going on, or we have development plans, or there may be a newer park where we need to have some discussion, so. It's 6 p.m. a good time for everyone?
I'm flexible. I can do pretty much whatever.
All right. And then transportation. So we'll have some conversations with our new manager to see what we can arrange in regards to the van. But obviously, there could be an option if people just want to drive to the site as well and meet us there. That could be an option as well.
I like the party bus idea.
You like the party bus? All right.
Well, what's nice about that is that we can carry the conversation, you know, we can. Yeah, that's true. You know, John can be the tour guide and just kind of sit up there with a little microphone and.
All right. So I think that covers everything that I need. And we'll get this information sent out to everybody.
I can just
Excellent.
tell you
Thank
that,
Kendall.
Tim, can I say something? The last time we did that, and we did take one of the buses, Karen Morey was with us on that bus, and she was so fun because she would point out different houses along as we were driving along as to what happened in this neighborhood or that neighborhood and things. So just a little shout out to Karen. Thank you so much for your service to this community.
Very good. Thanks for that. All right, we'll look forward to that tour. Thanks, Kendall, for setting it up, and we look forward to notification in our next packet about when that's going to happen. All right. So it looks like the final thing that the PRAC committee has to look at is the sidewalk chalk graffiti policy. And Kendall, it sounds like you've been writing on the sidewalks and making, new laws, what's happening.
Yeah, John is going to be bringing that forward based on the conversations that we had in our last meeting. We wanted to bring the policy forward and have some conversations around why we have the policy, what the policy is, how our policy compares to other jurisdictions, and just have some conversation about that. And I'll turn it over to John.
All right, very good, thank you.
Yeah, so Kendall had asked me to discuss this, and I was going through my phone and found about a dozen different pictures that I could have brought up, and we could go through a slideshow of pictures and the drawings and the writing. Graffiti and vandalism is a huge taxation on our parks crew and our parks. Oftentimes, we're needing to use equipment to get it off. I understand how chalk is used. I've been around enough kids to know that chalk is very, very popular right now. But also a time and a place for it, and also how do we draw a definitive line? So if you see someone on the side of a restroom using chalk and drawing inappropriate things, how is that different than someone who's using chalk and using it for the right reason? Maybe, I think the example of hopscotch was used as an example. So I guess, from my perspective, vandalism, graffiti has a high rate throughout our park system. It takes a lot of manpower to clean that up. And I don't really know how we draw that line and say, well, this is okay. If you want to draw in a park or on a park or anything within a park, that's okay. But you can't do this. This is not acceptable. This is acceptable. And how do we delineate that and draw that line? I was at a shelter over the weekend, and someone had innocently wrote, they had a shelter reservation, and it had, happy birthday with a young child's name. Again, pretty harmless. They were just trying to congratulate the young individual on celebrating their birthday. The next group who had the shelter reserved maybe didn't feel the same way about the celebration of that individual's birthday. And so people have an expectation that when they rent or reserve a shelter, that it's going to be clean, it's going to be readily available to them, and it's not going to have an impact like someone writing something on there that maybe another child who has a birthday party that shortly thereafter maybe may not understand or can is questioning, wait, it's my birthday party, it's not theirs, So that's just kind of my perspective. Just dealing with a lot of vandalism and graffiti throughout all of our park systems. I understand the chalk, I understand art, and I actually watched a young child. He was in one of the shelters, and you see kids coloring, and I'm thinking, oh man, he's scribbling on a picnic table. But no, he had a pad of paper down there, and he was drawing and getting to use the pad of paper. So I think that there's options for us maybe to find different avenues to be able to utilize artistic and allow kids to express themselves, but not impact others and not impact our parks and the maintenance staff. So it's just kind of my 2 cents.
Okay, so as we're looking at these park rules that they brought up, and it's kind of fuzzy, so it's a little hard to read, but on one of those, it says no water balloons, silly string, chalk, or confetti are allowed anywhere in the parks. Is that kind of what we're referring to?
Those are definitely certain items that, I mean, we're discussing. The one item that was brought up that we should discuss is chalk art. So,
Right, that's
and
what,
drawing.
okay. So chalk is
But
already,
that section is what you're,
it's already on our ordinances. It's just, how do we enforce it?
I think there was somebody here in our last meeting, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago, who brought up an issue at the parks where their kid didn't have any other place to do chalk. They lived in an apartment building. They were drawing in the chalk and they were upset that they got yelled at by the park staff. So I think that this is a follow-up to that conversation 2 or 3 months ago.
yeah, what had occurred, to give you some insight, is that there was an individual drawing on the sidewalk. Our park hosts let the child's mother know that we don't allow chalk in the parks. That was the...
And they handed her a mop and a bucket and told her to clean it up?
No, there was no mopper, no bucket. The park host was just walking the park at that time of the evening. He walked, he just let her know that we don't allow chalk in Oregon City parks. And then he just continued his walked all the way back up to his trailer. And when he got back to his trailer, he did fill a bucket of water and washed it off of the chalk off of the sidewalk, so.
I believe there's a request to review our policies. So I think that that's just what we're doing here.
We can't hear you, Tim. Could you speak into your microphone?
Is it on?
Oh, sorry. Is this a little bit better?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I think that this is just a request to revisit our policies to see if there's any leniency or language we can add in for that, if I'm not mistaken.
John, I could see that you have a very tough line to go ahead and toe. And bottom line is that it sounds like we have to be strict on this, and it's a zero tolerance on chalk.
I wouldn't go out and say that we have a zero tolerance. I don't believe anyone's been arrested for, drawing hopscotch on the sidewalk. It's just, we try to remind people, our shelters are being reserved at a very, very high rate. And trying to keep them clean right now, since we don't have our seasonal staff on yet, and we had this unseasonably warm May weather where a lot of people wanted to get out and use the parks. And so we're doing our best that we can to try to keep the shelters as clean as possible. Confetti is one of those items that when spread about and, it's very, very difficult to clean up. They're, quite frankly, either you are hand picking it up. We have found that a shop vac can do a fairly decent job at getting that cleaned up. But we have a lot of graduation parties that are going to be coming up in the near future. I don't know how many class of 2022 pieces of confetti we picked up. So, and we also need to remember, we don't have a park ranger. We don't have anyone going around. So for areas where we do have a park host, oftentimes they remind people that dogs are required to be on leash unless in a off-leash dog area. So, park hosts are there to help remind people, try to keep things in line, keep things clean, safe, and ready for use. So, yeah.
So in our contract.
So Johnny, you were asking, I'm sorry, so Johnny, you were asking for new signage that would help draw down the lines of what's acceptable and what's not?
No, I'm not asking for anything at this point. These are park rules and ordinances, and I support everything that's on there.
We just need to educate the public.
It's hard without enforcement. And so it really, I mean, we all have to work together. These are everybody's parks. And we want them to be ready and useful for everyone.
The shelter rentals don't include a
Cleaning fee
cleaning
or-
deposit that you're going to get back if you leave it in good shape?
No, only a park rental. So if someone rents the whole park site, then we do have a damage
Like when
deposit.
they have the big arts festival down at the
Yeah,
end of the trail.
Brewfest,
things.
any of those
Those
large.
big events.
Yeah.
Beer Fest, yeah, all right, okay.
Could we,
John, just a quick question about the rented space versus non-rented space where chalk might be displayed. Is there a possibility to allow for appropriate and for children to do chalk in areas that aren't paid for, like aren't the shelter locations?
But how do we regulate that?
I don't know, is it something that requires regulation? I mean, people go to the park to do a variety of activities. I guess to me, this doesn't seem necessarily like outside of like normal wear and tear, I guess, if it's in an area that's going to be rained on especially, which we get so much rain.
Hasn't rained all month, and so we have lots of chalk out there at several of our different sites. So, it then requires our park staff to go out and pressure wash it, or, at the very least with a hose, get it hosed off. So,
Yeah, because it doesn't rain from July to September.
yeah.
I think the other issue could be defining the word appropriate. Who's the
Exactly.
police on defining that, and where's the line that we draw with that? I mean, I've looked at a few of these following the comment that was there, and almost every city has this exact ordinance in there, I believe, for the same reason. I know you mentioned that earlier, John.
Yeah, it can be Gladstone, Portland, several other cities all have it.
would it be possible to, maybe during our tour, to just look around maybe and see if we couldn't designate a couple areas where it's, I mean, I understand the shelter, but hopscotch, there's a million different things, and you don't want to be a content monitor and any of that stuff, but perhaps maybe when we're wandering around, we might be able to find an area that's where it's at least not a burden to staff and offensive to other people. I mean, I know it's hard because if you're reserving, but I don't think it's the reservation people that are allowing their kids to, other than the happy birthday, but I mean, I don't know, I mean.
Actually, there was a couple of shelter reservations that
they
occurred
have,
this very last weekend, so. Yeah.
Well, maybe or we could talk about it while we're out walking around and just see if there's some areas that may or may not make sense. And it's kind of a benign issue, but it can turn into a real pain. It already has. I mean,
Yeah, like I say, graffiti, vandalism.
Yeah.
It's pretty high up there. So.
however, chalk versus spray paint.
Right, exactly. Exactly,
so-
yeah.
It seems to me this is something that could be brought up with CIC about the park rules, about how, to help out the park staff, can you just remind your neighbors that confetti and chalk and silly string and water balloons are not allowed in city parks? And, because it takes a village to educate our neighbors, and that might be a place to start. Some of the neighborhoods are pretty active, and some aren't, but.
I'm back to signs saying, if it's stated, you could point to it and say, there you go, look at this sign on the shelter. No chalk, no water balloons, no silly string, no confetti, no alcohol, whatever that we're asking them to do. It might be something that we could avoid a lot of problems by just stating it out loud on a sign. You might have less of a problem.
I think the issue we run into with signs is the number of signs, and people get upset if we have too many signs, and then the vandalism on the signs. So,
those are the first things that get shocked.
It's like a big billboard.
So we end up creating some additional issues for ourselves.
And another option could be when we're doing the tours, maybe identifying areas that can I've seen parks that have a section that has a chalkboard that's a little bit covered that designates that, so there is an outlet to the public who doesn't have access to their own driveways, that doesn't have access to where they can draw, to where they can go to do it, similar to where you have a splash pad. Again, nothing immediate would be there, but while we're doing design, something creative to add into the designs that I have seen at other Oregon parks. Just so, you know, if a kid wants to find a place in Oregon City to draw chalk, they have that, and we're presenting that as an option. And then we're kind of funneling that towards that rather than the signs we're going to build where they can put it on the signs. Just as a thought of maybe during our tour to something we can look at.
That's kind of where I'm leaning as too. It's just.
One thought that comes to mind when you mention that, Tim, is like there's a lot of irrigating in parks, and perhaps if there are designated areas, they could just be in areas that, you know, are kind of in the crosshairs of irrigation systems. So they're not staying there for very long if that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we went through the tours, we could look at different areas that are covered. I mean, irrigation's one, but I mean, rain 9 months out of the year would be the bigger, concern in my opinion. But again, I just think something we can talk about while we're going through the tours of a citizen has had an issue with this, at least trying to think if there's a creative solution for it.
All right.
One more point that I just thought of is like, what sort of training do the park hosts go through in terms of like dealing with the public and having those conversations and you know, not in offensive ways, or, because I think that was part of the complaint in the last meeting, that I think it was how the park host approached her and her child, I think was part of the issue too.
Yeah, I discussed the situation and with my park host, and he'd said that the child wasn't involved in the conversation. You know, like he didn't go address them.
Yell at the child.
Yell at the child. You know, a lot of times, you know, people when they're out in the park, they want to be able to go. They pay. They want to be able to use their parks for whatever reasons that they deem or feel are worthy. A lot of times when people are told, you know, hey, your dog needs to be on a leash.
It tense up.
Yeah. And so people don't want to hear like, well, this is my park, but you're telling me I can't use it for this reason, which I feel is an adequate use of it. So as far as training, you know, for the most part, our park hosts are there to make sure that the parks are ready for use and available, and also they're an extra set of eyes. And, you know, quite frankly, with the amount of vandalism, I would like to see an uptick from our community in reporting, you know, we saw suspicious activity, you know, we called it into non-emergency, someone was able to respond, because the ongoing need for us to put more of our attention into doors are being bent because people are trying to break into the bathrooms. Let's see, toilet paper is being wadded up and thrown up onto the ceiling. You know, there's just a ton of this. And one of the things that we always talk about is activating the parks. You know, the more often that appropriate usage of the parks is occurring, the better. But yeah, our park hosts, emptying garbages, checking restrooms, and then being that extra set of eyes, reminding people. I even discussed a little bit with Kendall, this needs some refreshing as well. We've run into a couple of things that I know aren't necessarily on there. Some of those came up during the time of the pandemic, but golfing in our parks, a little bit dangerous activity, but we had several folks who they couldn't go anywhere else, and they thought it was okay for them to go and hit some golf balls in the park, not thinking of the other people who are using the park and their safety. Horses, We had someone show up with a horse trailer at a park. So, I think that for what we have on there, it covers a lot of the heavy majority of what we're up against. One of the number one items that we pick up as far as trash in parks is cigarette butts. So without enforcement, it's really hard. But I definitely think coming up with some ideas of where we could post chalk and have that at various different park sites, kind of almost similar to our off-leash dog areas. You don't have it at every park, but you try to spread it out throughout the system and make it available. Like, here's an area that you could.
And I like Emily's idea that actually if it was just a matter of tweaking a sprinkler head or utilizing one that's already overspraying a hard surface area, that, so it goes away every day or every night, that might not be a bad idea. It's probably really not that big of a problem, and I don't want to make it a big problem, but there's got to be a solution but I kind of agree that, with the rules and the signs and all of that just kind of ruins your experience right off the bat. And at the bottom of your long list of no's, then you say, have a nice time, and it's just, so.
Any other questions? All right.
All right, is there any further discussion on this sidewalk chalk and graffiti policy? Okay, Kendall, I'll let you take it from here.
All righty. So first, I'd just like to thank the Park Alliance members who showed up for the budget committee meetings, the 4 that we had. Their support meant a great deal to us. Like Jerry shared, we were able to get 2 additional FTE for the next biennium to help with the maintenance of our parks and our facilities. So just wanted to thank Steve Williams, Tim West, Doug Neely, Carla Laws, Jerry Herman, Bob LaSalle, Kent Ziegler, and Roger of the Parks Foundation for coming to those meetings and providing their voice to help us be more effective at telling our story. So just want to thank everyone for their support for that. This is just the beginning. I'm going to provide some highlights about where we are with our Parks Master Plan. That's going to be a key component in providing direction for our department and being able to do a better job of advocating for additional funding that we need for our Parks Department moving forward. So the Parks Master Plan, we have our next public engagement meeting scheduled for Monday, July 10th here at City Hall at 6 p.m. We're starting to get that information out to the community. We've updated our website. We're getting it out on social media. Our communication engagement manager, our communication coordinator, not coordinator, but manager, is getting the marketing plan moving forward starting next Tuesday. We're also excited to talk about the launch of an app called a Happy Feet app starting on May 30th that will allow people to interact with us and provide feedback to us about our parks, our facilities, also provide information and engage with us to provide information associated with our Parks Master Plan. So we're really excited to get that launched as well. We have our website updated. That's orcityparksandplay.org. We're currently working on our capital improvement plan. And then we plan on launching our SDC methodology revision starting in June to tie in with that capital improvement plan. The other update is about the Clackamas Park Master Plan. That's been going on for quite some time, but I have some good news. That is going to the Planning Commission for a public hearing on June 26th at 7 p.m. at the Commission Chambers at Robert Lipke. Anyone can provide or testify at the public hearing or submit written testimony. So we're excited to get that moving forward. The general development plan did get submitted on May 17th with our land use application, our project narrative and code response, concept site plans, transportation analysis letter, geotechnical review, and our tree inventory. So we're really excited about moving that forward. That's going to be a huge project for us to kick off the next biennium. We're going to start looking at the boat ramp and everything that goes into getting that project started. So really excited about that. So that concludes my update. Are there any questions for me?
Can you say again, what date is that going to Planning Commission?
Yes.
It's going to the Planning Commission on June 26th.
June 26th?
At 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Could you repeat?
Are we going to have a chance to track members to, sorry, Ken, to look at this final report before it's presented to the City Commission?
Are you talking about the public engagement meeting to present the draft plan? What report, is that the report you're referring to?
Correct.
We will do the public engagement meeting on July 10th. On July 10th, but the plan is to bring that to PrAC as well. We're working on getting that scheduled. We don't know if we're going to be able to get that on the books for the next meeting coming up on June 22nd, or we'll get that on at another date. We're going to shoot for June 22nd. That's what we're working on, but we just have to get that date solidified.
Thank you.
Right.
So the website was OregonCityParksandPlay.org?
It's orcityparksandplay.org. So if you go to our website and you look under Parks Projects, we have a tab specifically for our master plan, and it has the link to that website. It has all the dates, the surveys, all the upcoming events, all of that is listed there.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'll turn it over to John for his update.
I was just trying to think, the last time we met, it was snowing, I believe, or roughly. Different weather conditions. Since then, we did our Enhancement Day at the end of the Oregon Trail, volunteer cleanup and tree planting and native plantings at the end of the Oregon Trail site. So that was a really great event. Got a lot of trees, native plant material, and bark dust spread. So got the site prepped and ready to go for the April 29th Peace Tree dedication, which occurred at the end of the Oregon Trail. Really great event. Had a good turnout, and I'm really proud of my staff. They worked really hard to get that site dialed in and ready to go. So I think we gave the ginkgo biloba a proper dedication. So there's more information on that as well on the city's webpage. So take a look at that if you guys are interested. Most recently, with the warming of the weather, we got the spray parks on. I'm pleased to announce that one of the two is currently on and running. And then as we get some seasonal staff, we'll be opening the second spray park at Rivercrest Park. Lastly, this coming Monday, Memorial Day, we will be hosting Memorial Day celebration at Mountain View Cemetery. For those of you who haven't been there, you know, Mountain View Cemetery is a unique park, but it has a very peaceful and serene kind of setting there at the cemetery. I am glad to announce that Phase 2 of the Veterans Memorial Project was completed. That's a portion of the project that allows us to host a Memorial Day service. We've been doing it virtually since the pandemic began, so this will be our first in-person Memorial Day service. So really excited about that. Yeah, but we've been working really hard to get the cemetery all dialed in, ready to go. All of the headstones have all been weed whacked around. Everything's all mowed up. It's looking really nice there. So yeah, really grateful to all of our staff and all of the people who helped us out with donations. This project would not have been possible without a lot of help from our community and surrounding members. So the pavers at the Veterans Memorial were donated by Mutual Material. And then we had 2 contractors that donated their time and staff to install them. So pretty special to have people willing to give of their time, money, and efforts to help us out for our Veterans Memorial. So would love to see you all there this Monday. I think everything kicks off around 10 o'clock, so hope to see you there.
All right, Denise?
So since I last saw you, I've spent a number of weeks over at the Pioneer Center until Cecily got here and turned the staff over to her. And I am grateful and appreciative to the staff at the Senior Center for doing such a great and amazing job while being short-staffed. They are resilient, to say the least, and it was my pleasure to turn the center and the staff over to Cecily, who the staff is very happy to have. While I was doing that, I was also doing the cemetery restroom replacement. Romtech started the build and it went quickly. So in the meantime of letting you guys know they were getting to start, they're almost done. So the building itself, the contractor has finished the building. That was Romtech. R.A. Gray is our on-site construction company that is going to do the on-site utilities and the parking lot. So we don't have a working restroom for Memorial Day. However, it looks beautiful. We're probably looking at the end of June to finish all the site utilities and the site amenities that we're trying to improve. And that should be done. We're hoping that we don't have any carryover time into the next fiscal year. But we have a couple of things that we're having to do, which is when we did the dig, the water line is corroded and had lots of holes in it. So it was minutely leaking, but still leaking, but the entire line is looking the same. So while we have the parking lot tore up, this is the perfect time for us to go in and trench a new line and feed the new restroom and the house, which is our office. West Good Neighbor Agreement, we are going to continue working on the river access improvement. So the hillside above the parking lot down below the road is an area that's needing some improvement. Had been improved before, but just wasn't sustainable. It didn't have a water source to it. So we're looking at doing native plantings and pollinators in that area and installing, we actually have a meter area for installation. It just was never set. So we're going to utilize that component that's already available to us and set a meter and provide irrigation to those plantings. So with that, we hired Lango Hansen for a planting plan that we can go through planning and get the planning review for that. And it's also in an NROD area, so Natural Resources will also take a look at that plan. We'll have to go through permitting for site utilities for the water line and the meter installation. And then we'll continue through that project to do some invasive removals, not native removals. I want to keep those. Invasive removals. And then we're going to be looking at the asphalt area that has some holes in areas and kind of improve those sections that we can. And then Coming Group has been our project management service that's been helping us through this West project agreement. And they have, I was absent for a couple weeks, so the addendum for Coming Group did not go to the commission as planned, so it was delayed. So I'll take it back through on June 21st. That's pretty much it for right now. Any questions?
Melissa?
So it's very busy at the swimming pool, or preparing for it to be very busy. Our summer schedule at the pool will start on June 26th, so we're about a month away from that. We have opened up all of our summer programming for registration at this point, so all of our summer camps and fitness classes and our swimming lessons, which our swimming lessons, just like I've talked about throughout this year, filled up immediately. Continues to be something that we're struggling to meet the needs of, just with the space and capacity within the one pool that we have. So I know yesterday at noon, there were hundreds, if not thousands of people, going to click, class of 6, where we can only have 6 kids, and it says it's open, but when you have 100 people clicking that button at the same time, it really does come down to that millisecond of who clicks it the quickest. So I think we're, at this point, a lot of those classes that we can have 6 kids in, we have wait lists already as long as 40 to 50, and that's gonna continue to grow. So. The other thing that is something that I know everyone is usually super excited about leading up to summer is the opening of our wading pool, which, if you saw some of the messaging that we have been putting out, there is a CO2 shortage going on right now, which is an important chemical that we need to be able to balance the pH in the water in the wading pool. And there are ways to mitigate that for our indoor pool, but because our wading pool shares the same water system as our indoor pool, there's a lot of complications that come up when we open that. And then, so we might see, heading into June, that we may have to limit the openings if we're still running into these CO2 shortages. So, we have a bunch of people that we are hiring right now for lifeguards and swim lesson instructor positions, and there's a lifeguard certification class that's starting next week, and we have 17 people registered for it. So it's gonna be me and 2 of our other lifeguard instructors teaching that class throughout the next couple of weeks. And then this past month has been Historic Preservation Month, and so at the Ermitinger House, we've been having some events there this past month, and then from now until I think the first weekend in June, we'll continue to have displays of photos from the restoration process it went through. So I really encourage you guys, if you haven't seen those, to go check those out, and it should be something that we're hoping to display on an annual basis during Historic Preservation Month. And then With that, we also finished our Preserve Our Past Art and Poetry contest that we do at the Ermitinger House. And we are currently, the committee that we have that grades all of those pieces are evaluating those, and we will have a banquet to award the winners of that contest on June 13th. And that's the end of my report.
Questions? All right, Cal?
Very good. Thanks for your report. Anything else, Kendall?
Wait, we got Cal. We got.
I couldn't hear him.
All right, go ahead, Cal.
I'll jump in there then. So I'm working with John's team to secure electrical access to exterior outlets at end of the Oregon Trail to try and limit some of the overnight camping that's leading to extra vandalism there. I've got some other signage that I've pulled up that's been damaged, need to create some more signs, sign holders for the space there. Moving up the hill at Ermitinger, some repairs were done this week. The porch, the structural issues have been repaired, and we're hoping by next week to get the painting done to pretty that back up. It was about a total of right about 50 square feet of decking, and then between 10 and 12 linear feet of the edging were damaged. Unfortunately, a house from that era, flashing had not been invented yet, and so it's a continual process to keep hitting these items, and there's no way around it. The things weren't designed to last 200 years out of wood in Oregon, but we're keeping up with it, and we're hoping we can make people proud of the space. Going over to Pioneer, we've got 3 projects that we're working on that rekeying, sliding door, and new reception desk, and about to give the bid on the reception desk. We've already found the contractors for the other 2 projects, and right now we're waiting for supply chain issues, and the tech that is going to do the rekeying work is just on a large school job that's running long, and so we're waiting for that to finish up before they'll come over and do that work. Other one that would affect everyone here is almost done with the new meeting room at Building and Planning. So that is scheduled to be done next week, and that space will be available for community groups, for neighborhood associations, all those kind of things. Having an outside party in there working and talking to the daytime users of the space, the Building and Planning Community Development Department. It looks like we're going to need to do some security upgrades to make them feel safe, that we'll be able to have people in there after hours, that we're talking it over, and we don't want to open it up until we make everyone feel safe in that space.
Thanks, Cal. Cecily, did you have anything you wanted to add in your 2 weeks of being here?
I'm sure my list will grow the longer we know each other. But yeah, just learning some great things about the center and doing some data that's required for the county. I was impressed to see that for the month of April, we provided 3,058 meals. That's through the Congregate program and the Meals on Wheels program combined. That's truly an impressive number when you look at what other centers are doing throughout the county, so something to be proud of. Bus trips for our dine outs and activities continue to be full with wait lists. We do have the transportation vehicles to provide more, service in that regard, but not drivers. So we had a wonderful Mother's Day event. In April, obviously, we had a fantastic volunteer appreciation that was very successful. And again, some of these programs are just coming back and these events are just coming back. So to see their successes is really wonderful. The Clackamas Community College summer programs and registration opened yesterday, and we're already getting great feedback. These classes are very well attended, and I think there's potential to grow that area as well. I've been meeting with JR in regards to that, and I'm hearing from Kendall that there's such potential to possibly grow like evening programming at the center as well. So just having those conversations, really just observing and gathering information to look forward to the future in regards to that. We do have some staff vacancies at the center still, and so interviews are being held next week for our vacant social services programmer position. That was formerly known as the Meals on Wheels coordinator, if that sounds familiar to you. And then today we had a wonderful activity where the North Clackamas Christian school came and they planted through anonymous donations vegetables and flowers, so like cut, stem flowers. The community garden looks beautiful. So that's what I had. Thank you.
All right, Tim, that completes our update.
Very good. Well, that brings us to the end of our schedule here. And is there anything else that anybody else wants to go ahead and bring up this time before we close out for this month?
Tim, I have one.
Now, or go ahead.
I have one thing, Tim, and this is something I should have brought up during member reports, but I wanted to give a shout out to Melissa and her staff with the Easter egg hunt at the pool. I thought that would be chaos, and I'd never seen anything like that. But I thought they did a tremendous job with it. I could tell the community absolutely loved it, and it was well received. So I just wanted to make sure to get that out there.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. All right. So if there's not anything else, I think we'll draw this meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody, for attending and your participation. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.